In the spring of 1922, an isolated Bavarian farm that goes by the name of Hinterkaifeck seemed ordinary. But strange events had begun to unsettle its residents. Farmer Andreas Gruber discovered mysterious footprints leading from the forest to the farm, yet none leading back out. He heard unexplained noises in the attic, found a newspaper no one recognized, and the house key disappeared without explanation. Days later, the family's maid abruptly quit, claiming the farm was haunted. A new maid arrived on March 31st, unaware of the fear hanging over the property. By nightfall, 6 people including 2 children were alive inside the farmhouse. By morning, every one of them would be dead. But the most terrifying discovery was still waiting to be uncovered. As darkness settled over the Bavarian countryside, life in Hinterkaifeck appeared normal. The new maid, Maria Baumgartner, had only arrived hours earlier to begin her first day of work. She had no idea the previous maid had refused to stay another night because she believed the farm was haunted. For Maria, this was simply another job. She would never leave the property alive. At some point during the evening, someone managed to lure members of the Gruber family into the barn one at a time. Exactly how this happened remains one of the greatest mysteries of the case. There was no sign of forced entry, no evidence of a struggle inside the house before the attacks, and investigators could never determine what drew each victim outside. The first to enter may have been Andreas Gruber, or perhaps it was his wife, Cecilia. What they do know is that each victim appears to have walked into the barn separately rather than all at once. Had they all gone together, they might have overwhelmed the attacker. Waiting inside the darkness was someone armed with a Matica heavy farming tool with an axe-like blade and a pointed pick. It was a weapon already found on many farms, making it both practical and terrifyingly effective. One by one, the victims were struck down. Andreas Gruber was killed first, perhaps second. His wife soon followed. The final victim in the barn was 7-year-old Cecilia Gabriel. The killer then entered the farmhouse. Inside were 2-year-old Joseph, asleep in his bed, and Maria Baumgartner, the new maid who had barely unpacked her belongings. Neither survived. Unlike the victims in the barn, Maria appears to have been attacked in her bedroom, likely before she even understood what was happening. Joseph was killed in his crib, ending the life of the youngest member of the family. By dawn, 6 people were dead, yet something about the crime scene immediately puzzled investigators. Nothing appeared to have been stolen. Money remained inside the farmhouse. Valuables were left untouched. There was no evidence that robbery had been the motive. If the killer had come for wealth, they had inexplicably walked away without taking it. But the strangest discoveries were still to come. The murders were not discovered immediately because Hinterkaifeck sat in an isolated location between woods and farmland. Several days passed before neighbors became concerned. People noticed the family had failed to appear at church. Young Cecilia was absent from school. Mail began piling up. Still, no one immediately investigated. In rural Bavaria, during the early 20th century, families often kept to themselves. A few days of silence did not automatically raise alarm. Then, on April 4th, neighbors finally went to the farm to see what had happened. What they found would become one of Germany's most infamous crime scenes. But as investigators examined the property, they realized something even more disturbing than the murders themselves. Someone had been living there. After the killings, and that chilling discovery would transform an already horrifying murder case into one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. When police began searching the Hinterkaifeck farm, they expected to find clues that would quickly lead them to the killer. Instead, every discovery only deepened the mystery. The bodies of the 4 victims in the barn had been carefully covered with hay, almost as if someone wanted to hide them more, perhaps out of a strange sense of remorse. Inside the farmhouse, Maria Baumgartner and young Joseph were left where they had been killed. It was a crime scene unlike anything investigators had ever encountered. But the strangest evidence suggested the murderer hadn't fled after the killings. Neighbors reported seeing smoke rising from the chimney during the days after the murders. Someone had been feeding the family's cattle and other livestock. Fresh meals had apparently been prepared in the kitchen, and bread had been eaten from the pantry. Whoever committed the murders seemed comfortable staying on the property for several days, living among the bodies without fear of being discovered. This revelation stunned investigators. Was the killer waiting for something? Were they searching for an object hidden somewhere on the farm? Or had they simply wanted to prove they could remain there without anyone noticing? Police searched the property from top to bottom. They questioned neighbors, examined footprints, and followed every lead they could find. Hundreds of people were interviewed over the years, yet no evidence pointed conclusively to a single suspect. The man who attracted the most suspicion was Lorenz Schlittenbauer, a nearby farmer. He had known the Gruber family for years and was rumored to have had a relationship with Victoria Gabriel after her husband died during the First World War. Suspicion grew because of his behavior after the bodies were discovered. Witnesses claimed he appeared unusually calm as he entered the farmhouse. He also seemed to know his way around the property, moving confidently through rooms that others approached cautiously. To many, his actions felt strange, though they were never enough to prove guilt. Schlittenbauer consistently denied any involvement. Despite repeated questioning, investigators were never able to produce physical evidence linking him to the murders. Other theories soon emerged. Some believed the killings were committed by traveling robbers. But this explanation raised an obvious question. If robbery was the motive, why was nothing valuable taken? Another theory suggested an escaped psychiatric patient or wandering stranger had stumbled upon the isolated farm. Yet no credible evidence ever connected an outsider to the crime. Over the decades, countless additional suspects were proposed. Former soldiers, family acquaintances, and even members of the Gruber family themselves became subjects of speculation. Each theory explained some parts of the mystery, while leaving others unanswered. As the years passed, the investigation slowly lost momentum. Witnesses died, memories faded, physical evidence deteriorated. What little forensic science existed in 1922 could do only so much, and many opportunities to preserve evidence were missed forever. One by one, every promising lead reached a dead end. The Hinterkaifeck murders remained unsolved, and more than a century later, the identity of the killer is still one of history's greatest mysteries. More than 100 years have passed since the murders at Hinterkaifeck, yet the case continues to fascinate historians, investigators, and true crime enthusiasts around the world. Modern experts have revisited the evidence countless times, hoping advances in forensic science might finally reveal the truth. Unfortunately, much of the original evidence has long since disappeared. The farmhouse itself was demolished in 1923, only a year after the murders, taking with it any remaining clues that might have survived. Without DNA testing, surveillance, fingerprints, or reliable forensic preservation, investigators were left with little more than witness statements and circumstantial evidence. Even today, no theory perfectly explains every detail. If Lorenz Schlittenbauer was responsible, why was there never enough evidence to charge him? If a stranger committed the murders, how did they know the farm so well? Those unexplained footprints leading from the forest, the missing house key, the sounds coming from the attic, the newspaper that no one remembered buying. Taken alone, each event might seem insignificant, but together, they paint a disturbing picture of someone secretly observing the family long before the murders took place. Perhaps the killer had been hiding on the farm for days. Perhaps they knew the Grubers personally. Or perhaps the truth disappeared forever with the people who died that night. Because no one was ever convicted, the Hinterkaifeck murders remain officially unsolved. The lonely farm no longer exists, replaced by open fields where almost nothing hints at the horrific events that unfolded there in the spring of 1922. Yet despite the passage of time, the mystery has never faded. It continues to inspire books, documentaries, podcasts, and investigations by people determined to solve a crime that may never be solved. Maybe the answer is buried somewhere in forgotten records. Maybe it was lost when the farmhouse was torn down. Or maybe the killer escaped justice forever. One thing is certain. On the night of March 31st, 1922, 6 innocent people were murdered on an isolated farm in Bavaria. Their killer vanished without a trace, leaving behind a mystery that has endured for more than a century. And until new evidence is uncovered, Hinterkaifeck will remain one of the most haunting, unsolved murder cases in history.